And what did she do? Those of us who are familiar with culture and what Bolandi or St. Peter does in the area of the creativity sector, and I've seen her production, Saka, Waka, as well as the very well-known musical, the Kalakuta Queens, will know what I'm talking about. It's a good example of 1, leadership, 2, innovation, 3, taking advantage of the digital ecosystem. And what did Bolandi or St. Peter do? She decided to put, I think it was the Kalakuta Queens online during the lockdown, where all of us were locked up. She decided to put it on. I saw that production itself, at Terra Culture, and I also saw it online. So it's a very good example of what we're talking about in terms of the question of leadership, the issues of innovation and whatnot. About 40,000 people went online to see Kalakuta Queens in their homes. This is a good example as far as this is concerned. And I sincerely hope that when we finish speaking, when we finish this session, then we'll be able to come up with a plan of action and roadmap in terms of how can we come up with it, innovation, content development, and leadership. Quickly, the AfCFTA is here, and I say that indeed it's also an opportunity as far as this is concerned. And the young people, of course, will not take advantage of this. Services is still being negotiated, but the potential is huge, and this is the time to key in as far as this is concerned. Before I leave, I want us to remember and say this again. The AfCFTA is not a 100-meter dash. I repeat, the AfCFTA is not a 100-meter dash. It took 60 years to put the AfCFTA together. It's going to take a long time. It's a long-distance race. So people must have a proper understanding. Before the whole question of tariffs and others are reduced, you will not have anything less than 10, 15 years. But this is the time now to prepare for it. As an SME, how do you do it? I tell a story. Right behind me, there's a coffee company, Khalid Coffee, just behind us, not too far away from where I stay. And I was very happy when I went in there on an art-related event, and they were telling me that, oh, you're DG NACCIMA. I said, yes. They said, we are getting ready for the AfCFTA. We've gone to acquire land somewhere along around Ogun State with the intention to, in the next 5-6 years, trade, compete with Kenyan coffee, also compete with the Ethiopian coffee. So this is, I think, a good example, because I always like to concretize the abstractions to give practical example. And I'm sure that as young people, we can be able to come together, innovation, leadership, content development. Thank you very much for this opportunity, goodwill, message. I will, of course, hopefully, if I be part of the panelists, and then maybe can have 1 or 2 remarks. I must alert you that although I do have another event starting at about next 10, 15 minutes. So if you see me disappear as a panelist, you understand. But I'm sure to come back to you as far as this is concerned. Once again, thank you very much for this initiative. You've shown leadership. You've been very innovative. Let us walk the talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you for your time. You've been very gracious. And we hope to still have you join us on the panel contribution, because I'm sure that, as this is designed to be very organic, and I'm sure in the course of the engagement, as well as the Q&A, there'll be a lot of questions around the specific roles that NACCIMA is playing as regards the FTP, which you already have started to speak to. Just following up from what you said around the FTP being a, it's not an 100-meter race. It's a long haul. It's a marathon, so to speak, and it's important that we begin to key in. So the essence of this webinar as well, welcoming all our participants who are joining from across Nigeria, is to begin to see how we want to position Nigerian MSMEs. What role will innovation play? Quite frankly, based on our assessment and some of the surveys we've conducted, people really don't even know what exactly, this is and how their business is going to benefit. And like you said, this is a good time, to begin to position ourselves for that conversation. So I would also want to welcome all our panelists who've just recently joined us. I can see that Dr. Adedeji is now here. I can see that the Prof is also with us, so welcome. And also our attendees, our participants, thank you and welcome. We hope that this will be really meaningful and productive time for you. But I can already assure you that with the kind of lineup of discussants that we have joining us. We also have Alhaji Sonny Gaba here. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much. So without wasting much of our time, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker. Now, the interesting thing about our keynote speaker is, is someone who has done quite a lot of work within that trade facilitation across the ECOWAS region. And we hope, well, I've heard him speak not once, not twice, and I've even used some of his presentation before now. So without wasting much of our time, I want to introduce Professor Jonathan Aremu, who is consultant on common investment markets to ECOWAS regional expert on trade and investment issues. Is the expert involved in the drafting of the current Pan-African Investment Code for African Union, member of the technical working group on the drafting of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So by all of this, I'm very sure that he's very much on top of the issue. So just picking up all from that is that we have young SMEs right now in our attendees at the moment who are trying to understand where they filled into this. So how does this make sense to them? The reality of which right now is the FCTA is either going to be a win-win or a zero-sum game, for one party or the other. So how do we make sense of this? How do we ensure that Nigerian SMEs right now are on the winning side of things? How do they position themselves to be able to take advantage of this? What role does innovation play? What role does local context development play? What do we need our policy actors should be doing? What are the variables that need to come together? These are some of the things that we hope that your keynote address would touch on. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I will come up with if you allow me to share my screen, I will put it on the screen now.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I'm still disabled.
Please, can you, Winifred, can you please help with that?
All right.
Okay.
Has he done that? Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir, you can.
Yes,
sir, you can.
Yes. I think we're seeing your screen already, actually.
Yes, sir.
You have seen my screen?
Yes, your desktop, sir.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Okay. Once again, I thank you for calling me for this seminar, and I equally thank my friend, the DG NACCIMA. We have been together since when we were very young. The assignment given to me is to give a keynote speech on the role of innovation, local content development for an African continental free trade area, driving growth for MSMEs. Let me start by saying that the outline of my presentation is as follows: introduction, how AfCFTA emerged, and then the commencement of it, how to reposition Nigeria for implementation, and then the importance of MSMEs in the African Continental Free Trade Area, and our readiness, that is the MSME readiness into AfTA, particularly with respect to innovation and national content development. Over the years, more than a century now, the entire African countries, they have been grouping themselves. In 1919, we discovered that EAC was formed, SACO was formed in 1910, and then ECOWAS was formed in 1975. But one thing about all these regional grouping is that quite a lot of them, particularly before of overlapping of jurisdiction of so many membership of regional economic community. Let us look at that one in the next figure which we are seeing there. That is the figure we are seeing as a result of the development of many regional economic community in African continent. Quite a lot of them are overlapping into each other with different intention to be able to achieve one thing or the other. But quite a lot of them want to expand trade based on the basic theory of economic integration. But unfortunately, as the first slide actually said, let's go back to it. We discovered that not much has been done in terms of achieving greater inflow of trade. So what is happening? Okay, so by 1991, when the African Economic Community Treaty was put in place, they said, okay, this problem of overlapping of jurisdiction of many regs had to be resolved. So 8 regs were actually recognized. Those are the 8 of them that were recognized. And in ECOWAS, despite the fact that we have the English-speaking regional grouping, we have the MRU, that's the Manu River, we have the French River, French-speaking. The only 8 were recognized, and ECOWAS was only recognized while the other regional grouping are to operate within ECOWAS. So also are the other regional groupings again, so as to ensure efficient use of all these regional economic groupings. So the emergence of African Continental Free Trade Area, we can see that quite a lot of initiative started since after the EAC, African Economic Community Treaty was created. And in January 2012, we see the head of state coming together to be able to look at what they can do. The initial thing was to look at a 3-party free trade area, which was EAC, COMESA, and SADC. That was finalized in 2014. And then to use the success of that one to draw a roadmap for a continental-wide own. And then you can look at that, the roadmap that was drawn in that diagram. It was started commencement in 2015, and then negotiations started February 2016. It was to be concluded December 2017. Unfortunately, it couldn't be concluded until March 2018, when the Kigali Agreement was signed by quite a lot of countries. When that is exactly what happened. And 3 main protocols came into existence at that meeting: Protocol on Goods, and then Protocol on Services, as well as the dispute settlement. Nigeria did not actually sign until 7th of July 2019, and then we only ratified on the 4th of December last year. So we are now a member of the state party in African Continental Free Trade Area, which means we can participate in everything, but knowing fully well that we arrived there a little bit late than other countries. So those states that ratified and implement the agreement, they will have to make domestic adjustments, particularly in their national laws, so that they can actually have compliance with the treaty which they have entered into. So also Nigeria, we equally make that kind of commitment, and that is why the National Action Committee was put in place to be able to make sure that Nigeria is mainstreamed into the agreement. What is happening? My this is not moving. Hello? Hello?
Well, we can hear you, Prof.
We can hear you, sir. He said something is not moving. We can hear you well.
Let's go ahead, Prof. Can somebody just call him?
Okay, we'll do just that.
It's muted.
Or send me a WhatsApp message.
Yes, sir.
I guess network issues because he has left already, but we're trying to get back to him. Please stay with us. I think he's having issues with his network. He's already out, but we're trying to get back to him so that he can continue his presentation.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Maybe perhaps if you call him, but I think as we continue so that we don't lose time, perhaps we can also, because some of the points which has been made by him, I sincerely hope question and answer time will also, because the whole issue of Nigeria's joining, and of course the whole question of what happens and how can SMEs also go on to that are very key issues in terms of what exactly is happening. And I think that's why and how the whole question and issues of what is happening at the national level as far as Nigeria itself is concerned, the National Action Committee on AfCFTA itself is concerned, is key and very important to sensitization. Because I must say that a lot of people, even as the chambers of commerce, and I give you a good example that when we went to our AGM somewhere, I think in the East, and the question people are asking, look, this is your ACSCFTA, you are just talking among yourselves in terms of what is going on. What are the steps to be taken? What are you sensitizing people as far as this is concerned? And of course, and I will want to subsequently also want us to interrogate the issue, because at the end of the day, the customs is going to be a very, very key across Africa, a very key and very important aspect as far as the AfCFTA is concerned. And I'm not talking theory here, I'm talking practical issues. As a Chambers of Commerce, we are involved, of course, with customs. The whole question of the certificate of origin, because at the end of the day, so in our discussion, I will also suggest that we look at the critical role which the customs across Africa will play in this particular area. I'm not aware yet a forum of customs, establishment across Africa in terms of have they met? What are the decisions? What has in terms of what has been done? I think this is a very critical, a very important aspect and a very important area. And of course, then the gender dimension of this is also there. I'm just throwing these up. And I'm saying all of this against the background of known experience in the foreign service. I spent 35 years in the Nigerian foreign service, served 2 terms in New York, served in Nairobi in Kenya, and also ended up as High Commissioner in Australia, as far as this is concerned, and involved in a lot of trade negotiations. It's a key, it's always very complex, but at the end of the day, the most important thing is to recognize that it is the companies, the people that will do trading, agreement between countries, but at the end of the day, it's the private sector that will deal with this issue. We should remember that, and that's why it is key and very important. And of course, our SMEs, of course, like we said, that in our theme, it's one of the opportunities which we have. And I said that as a career diplomat, USAD, I know that it's always a big challenge as far as our SMEs is concerned. And a lot of informal trading is going on now. And the AfCFTA presents an opportunity for us to make it formal. And that is why we have, a lot of our traders, the SMEs, I'm sorry to say, a lot of the women are very enterprising. When you fly the KQ flight from Nairobi to Lagos and 432 and the 433, which goes on to Dubai, you will be shocked at the number of hand luggages and handbag, the amount of goods that are in those places. I sincerely hope Prof is back now, or if we will be able to. I just thought I should use that opportunity to make those remarks and throw up some issues in terms of the question of the customs within the framework of all of this, so that we don't forget that critical aspect and that critical area. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now, interestingly, our session, I recall talking to Mr. Ioshola, who is moderating the panel session. And interestingly, he flew from Lagos to Abuja today to meet to custom. He runs 1365, that handles fright. And I'm sure that at the session, by the time you'll be speaking, some of the issues you'll be touching on will be issues relating to that, because quite frankly, that regulatory and the role that government plays in facilitating that movement of goods is very essential. So I'm sure that conversation will feature. So I'm sure he'll please begin to take a cue from the kind of conversations that we expect that comes out of your session by the time you're moderating with other panelists. I just spoke to Prof, so you should be joining us any second from now to continue with presentation. But let me also, while we're waiting for Prof, please, if you feel the need to perhaps join the conversation, any of our panelists who feels led to also speak to some of the things that Ambassador was talking about now, please go ahead, please. I don't know if Mrs. Toyin would want to say something. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to everyone in Nigeria. Such an honor, His Excellency, such a pleasure to connect with you again. I really resonate with everything you shared. I think if you could see me, I was nodding my head. I was like, yes. Like you said, I think the big thing is that I try to say that I think the weakest link that Africa has is actually in the private sector. And the reason is because typically innovation happens within the private sector, and then the public sector is usually the one chasing to, moderate or, govern the private sector. Innovation usually happens in the private sector first. And also the private sector in terms of, policy advocacy, I think it's a little bit weaker that I see across the continent, not just in Nigeria, is that the private sector and association needs to be more engaged in even crafting policies, because what tends to happen is the policy has already sailed, it has already been crafted, it's sailed, and now the private sector is trying to figure out what was in that policy, right? What did we just sign up for? How do we implement it? All of that, which are some of the things that, before needed to have happened. So yes, I'm looking forward to the conversation we'll be having for sure. But I'm also looking forward to sharing the why. Why is AfCFTA so important for the private sector through the lens of wealth creation? So I look forward to our session as well, but I just wanted to echo what His Excellent Ambassador Ayala was saying, like it's the private sector, this is for you. And the private sector must mobilize itself, develop capacity, and marshal its resources to really venture and leverage this policy. Thank you to the team for the invitation. I look forward to adding more on during our panelist discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Toyin. And thank you once again for joining us. I'm sure it's perhaps like 8 a.m. over there.
Actually, I'm on Central, so this is 6:30.
Wow.
It's okay. Anything for
again.
you guys. It's good. It's a great conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right. Thank you very much. I'm sure Prof has joined us, but I haven't seen his video or sound come up yet. So and it's just picking up for while we're waiting for him, just picking up on what you were saying earlier around what the private sector needs to do and all that. I think on our side of things as well, on the private sector side of things, is that COVID has now presented new challenges in its own self, and it's important to know that okay, so how do they, innovation is going to play a key role in terms of our processes. What do they need to first? We even first need to understand the FCTA, the rules of origin and issues around this, because some of the conversations I was part of it at the inception when we're even trying to get Nigeria to ratify it, when there was initial cold feet from the presidency to, sign the agreement and all of that, stakeholders engagement, that was, facilitated just to, they had manufacturers association and all of that conversation. Now, a lot of issues have come up as regards making sure that, private sector itself, like Ambassador said, it's all potential, but potential that is not that if we don't put in the required work, it will end up not, amounting to much for us, for the SMEs. So I think some of the areas we also need to now look into is that within the private sector itself, what are the ways, what are the things we need to be doing? What are the new businesses that need to be prioritized? How do we scale the existing ones? What are the other logistics support that we need to enable them to take advantage of that? So I'm looking forward to that panel session. I'm sure Hill is here, and all our panelists, and Alaji as well. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm hoping that, and I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of our attendees as well. So I'm sure that we'll be able to get to that. Thank you for, I think Prof is here. Thank you, Prof. Prof, I know it's 12:35 already. We're hoping that, we can, get the crux of your session within the next 10, 11 minutes. Thank you. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm very sorry. The computer just went on its own. And I don't know whether my screen is back. Is my screen back?
No, sir, it's not, sir.
What is happening?
Can you share your screen?
That's exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
Can
Okay,
I-
yes, I think we have you now.
Is it back?
Yes, yes, it is,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, please.
Topic is a topic. So if you want to pick it up, I will rush.
I'm extremely very sorry for what happened. The computer went off on its own. It wasn't my making at all. I will rush to finish the schedules. I was talking about the emergence of African Continental Free Trade Area, and then I said Nigeria actually signed on the 7th of July 2019, and we have ratified on the 4th of December 2020, and the thing has commenced. And the commencement started January 1st, and you are not aware where we are. But how do we reposition ourselves in Nigeria for the takeoff and to be able to implement African Continental Free Trade Area? I have a diagram there that will show the related policy enablers, which will allow to be able to have larger market, will be able to give us greater investment, will be able to give us decent jobs. It's going to lead to industrial development. But the related policies are in all those blocks: better infrastructure, freer movement of goods and services, improved digital connectivity, access to finance, and then you go to the one down, that's the rectal group downstairs. We must be able to have standard of our products as well as quality infrastructure. The technical and vocational training are equally there, so that we should be able to have greater level of industrial development. Also, in the rectangle 3, education and skill, social protection and policy measures, public services must be equally be doing well, functioning tax system as well as other enabling domestic policies. Now, a lot of people are saying that since our ECOWAS did not work well, how are we sure that this one will work well? Well, I believe that ECOWAS has given us quite a lot of opportunity to be able to launch into this one, and the experience we gather in ECOWAS will position us well to be able to achieve a lot of opportunity here. But first and foremost, we must domesticate what we have ratified. So the domestication is on. If we did not domesticate, it will not allow to be able to effectively be integrated into the system, particularly Section 12 of our Constitution, particularly subsection 1, actually said that no treaty between the federal government and any other country will have effect of law if it did not pass through National Assembly. So we are going through domestication to make sure that what we have said we are going to do in African Continental Free Trade Area, the environment, the Constitution will allow to get it done. Without, therefore, failure to domesticate or lateness in doing so will actually create a lot of problems, and we don't want this problem to happen. Secondly, there must be better infrastructure. My friend, the DG of NACCIMA, has already talked on the issue of digital connectivity, and which is equally one of the important things that you actually identify in this seminar with respect to innovation. We are sure that if there's no effective connectivity, it's going to be difficult to be able to participate. Knowing fully well that African Continental Free Trade Area is going to function well under Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, in which I want to buy something in Kenya, I will only pay in shilling, while they will debit me in Naira over here. So it involves Central Bank of Nigeria as well as other central banking systems have very good connectivity. And within Nigerian economy, the central bank is well connected to the remotest part of the country. So anybody can buy anything from any part of Africa and pay in Naira. So that's number one. Number two is the issue of freer movement of people as well as goods plus the environment. Well, the protocol on free movement, as is happening in ECOWAS, is equally inserted in the African Continental Free Trade Area, particularly when we go to the area of services. The provider of services, they move a lot. Therefore, there is provision for freer movement. But in Nigerian economy also, we must prepare our economy ready with respect to freer movement of people as well as goods for a good business environment. Now, the next one is facilitation of micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, which happen to be the main subject we are discussing today. Evidences across the continent reveal that large share of intra-African trade are by small and medium scale enterprises, and therefore informal cross-border traders who dominate our continent. They are facing a lot of problems. We have seen that problem in ECOWAS. It's happening all over Africa as well. So while the removal of tariff will facilitate trade, I think a simplified trade regime, STR, which will not only be based on letters of credit, must be put in place to allow participants, but at least particularly the MSME professionals, to be able to participate well in this African Continental Free Trade Area. So we are now back to the subject, which how will you allow SMEs to be able to participate very well under this arrangement? The first thing is the issue of the fact we are going to look, first of all, at the importance of SME, which I said earlier on, but I will take a greater look at them. If we allow SME to participate quite well, we are going to see, particularly with the inclusion of protocol on investment in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we are going to see this kind of diagram. We are going to see company in Nigeria, network in all those parts of Africa, and then doing one thing or the other in terms of subcontracting and vertically integrating themselves into supplying input and getting a lot of products from other countries in Africa. So this is what we expect, and this is what our MSME will be able to actually develop into, and then develop into what we can call continental transnational cooperation, supplying and receiving input from other member countries in Africa. So this is how much the importance of SME can get in terms of cutting across to other countries and receiving input in the production activities in Nigeria. So we are going to see quite a lot of development, particularly that will be of benefit to Nigeria. It will enhance inter-regional trade. It will promote vertical and horizontal integration. It will enhance efficiency. It will allow more investors to gain as a result of specialization. Investment efficiency will be created. It will lock Nigeria into other African countries in terms of political development and economic development as well. It will create a web of positive interaction, and culture of cooperation will exist. It will provide access to a wider variety of goods as companies are compelled to innovate and develop better products across the entire Africa. So, but are we really ready for this, for SME to get this one done? The readiness of MSME in Nigeria to achieve the above benefit will depend on 6 things, which I'm mentioning here. Knowledge about it, about African Continental Free Trade Area, that is the awareness of and understanding of the agreement, its objective, its negotiation, and how to affect business. Secondly, the production capacity. If you want to participate in a trade, but you cannot produce, you can't. You will not be able to do that. So our farms are resourced both internally and externally to be able to produce effectively and expand into African continent is important. Also, the next point is ability to compete. We must be ready to compete, and therefore there is need to develop standards so that our product will be allowed to enter other countries. And number 4, ability to export. That is, understand and familiarize with the process of of exportation, particularly the current export credential that's been put in place by African Continental Free Trade Area. Number 5, which is the subject of what you tell me to do, is ability to innovate, ability to introduce new and improved products, as well as production process as well. And last but not the least, which is another subject you tell me to talk about, is the ability to develop and adapt to local content. That is the presence of local content policy and its relevance to enhance our MSME position in African Continental Free Trade Area. Let's look at innovation. Innovation is the implementation of a new or significantly improved way of getting things done and done better. It is distinguished by the degree of novelty, that is originality, depending on whether they are new to the farm or new to the market. So for SME, our SME to be able to participate well, there must be innovation. There are so many ways of differentiating varieties of innovation by type, that is by product innovation or process innovation. Then also organizational innovation, marketing innovation. This type of innovation, we expect our SMEs, with the help of the government, to be able to assist them to develop product innovation, process innovation, organizational innovation, and marketing innovation. We shall come to that soon. Also, the second variety of innovation, which we are looking at, is the issue of radical or disruptive innovation. That is the one that has a significant impact on the market and economic activity. Also, it's incremental. That is the kind of innovation that will concern, make sure that you replace the existing product or process or organization method. So both impact innovation, that is the radical, and then the incremental, they are equally very important, which we must be ready to be able to allow our MSME to develop, to be able to participate. The next one is resource innovation, which involves technological innovation and non-technological one. The technological innovation will involve both product and process, while the non-technological one is with respect to organization and marketing. Last but not the least is the issue of social and objective innovation. That is to the extent to which an innovation can actually improve the quality of life of people, not in the Nigeria alone, but in entire Africa. All these various varieties of innovation process will be relevant for our MSME to be able to participate well into African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, what are the products as well as process innovation? A product innovation is a kind of innovation that arises a sort of technical specification, component of material, new incorporated software that are user-friendly. And it could be in the form of new product as a result of new uses of the product. So the main thing we need to do is to have to make sure that under product innovation, our MSME, they can participate in development of new product and in new uses of such product as well. What about process innovation? Process innovation with respect to production method as well as delivery method. All these ones are necessary if we are to be able to participate effectively in African Continental Free Trade Area. Now, the next thing is how to distinguish the issue between process and product innovation. Because with respect to trading goods, there's no problem in that kind of distinction. But with trading services, there's a difference. Why? Because if the innovation involves new or significantly improved characteristics of the services offered, it is service product innovation. But if it's only to improve the method, then it is process innovation. But if it improves both, it is both product and process innovation. And Nigeria, we have comparative advantage in services. Therefore, we must be ready to develop product as well as process innovation. So that is where we are with respect to the issue of innovation. I hope this thing will continue to work. It's having a problem again. Right? Nigeria should take into consideration that different effects of the various types of innovation on goods and services when designing innovation policy towards after. Product and process innovation may differ in their impact for innovation policy agenda. Why? Because most of the time, attention is paid to product innovation, less attention is paid to the process innovation. Don't let me waste your time in this one. Let us go straight to the issue of local content, particularly its importance. You all agree with me that the issue of local content is not well favored under the WTO. GATT Article 3, TRIMS Article 2, and then the article on government procurement, Article 3, number 8, as well as agreement on subsidies, as well as accountability measure, Article 2. All of them frown at the issue of content. That is, you cannot impose content on a farm that enters Nigeria that it must employ this number of people, it must supply this one. No. But in line with WTO provision, therefore, African members were not permitted to impose conditions on themselves. But at the same time, we can use this issue of content, local content, to be able to allow it to have positive impact on the backward and forward vertical integration of the companies that are coming to Nigeria. Also, there can be horizontal integration, there can be local procurement opportunity, local sourcing, as well as local hiring opportunity. Backward and forward vertical integration. The backward is towards the source of input, the forward is towards the market. Horizontal involve companies producing more or less similar things, but come into an agreement and then they increase their own volume, their volume of activity by expanding their business activity. So in all these measures, these 5 areas, we can see that the issue of local content can be achieved. It be started into Nigeria participating in African Continental Free Trade Area. Therefore, without violating WTO provision, the objective of local content policy in Nigeria, the implementation of AfCFTA, could be the following 4 factors. Maximization of value and job creation through the use of local expertise, goods and services, businesses and financing in value chain of African Continental Free Trade Area in the economic activity. Develop local capacity in value chain through education, skills, transfer and expertise development, as well as transfer of technology and know-how with active research. And 3, encourage the achievement to some degree local participation of Nigerians in companies that are operating in Nigeria from other African countries. And lastly, but not the least, liaise with foreign companies from African member states to create value into the country. That is through things like mutual recognition agreement. You know fully well that an accounting firm coming into Nigeria to be able to practice must agree with what we have under the accounting institute in Nigeria. Therefore, under that kind of mutual recognition agreement, we should be able to liaise to allow them to be able to create value. Okay? At the current situation in which technology is shaping the world, the question facing our government towards after are 3. How are innovation informing Nigerian public policy in design of local content strategy toward after? Secondly, are those innovations taking place? Are they blind side to local content? Because if the innovation is totally blind to local content, then it will not be integrated into after. So they have to be alive, not blind. Lastly, what should be the direction of local content strategy in promoting the macroeconomic policy objective of Nigeria? Therefore, we need to be able to see that for Nigeria to be able to benefit via innovation and technology and local content, the following 4 factors are very important. There must be training program requirement or incentive, which are aimed at encouraging foreign companies to build skill and domestic workforce. That is not trying to actually put any problem on them. We are equally encouraging domestic firms to do likewise. Also, public education initiative, wherein the state open training centers across the country, establish program and organize overseas scholarship to be able to build expertise in sector, particularly where those after-induced enterprises coming from other African countries effective takeover of those activities, not expropriation, but to be able to do what they can do to be able to be doing similar things, or allow them to be able to be there but being integrated, working in the environment. Giving of incentive to small business development, including fostering better access to credit so that they can be able to be engaged profitably well, and permit the process and production of products so that they can have significant economic benefits into Nigeria being integrated into AfCFTA. In conclusion, to reposition the SME for their effective participation in AfCFTA, government should consider the role which innovation and local content development offer for their being included. While AfCFTA could increase welfare of Nigerians, it will equally lead to some sort of cost. So to be able to make sure we reap the benefit of AfCFTA, as well as mitigate related costs, Nigeria needs to pursue a concomitant, ambitious, and broad-based reform agenda that will not only enhance innovation development in product and process of the economic actors, but also adjust the local content strategy of the economy to promote vertical and horizontal economic integration of African member state enterprises into the system. Also, to be able to do this, we need to promote innovation strategy that will lead to the growth and functioning of product and process market, as discussed earlier, social protection program, as well as encouragement of investment and innovation within well-defined national transformation strategy. In addition, we need to ensure a more efficient product market that could help transmit broader benefits of trade and investment liberalization to the Nigerian population by following these three things: guarding against industry concentration and using market power to block price reduction or introduction of more actually good to the population as a sort of AfCFTA. Putting in place enhanced competition and fair trading and competition commission that can limit monopolistic practices, and having reform of rules on farms entering into the market and exit, including modernizing bankruptcy rules. And last but not least, having a well-designed transformation strategy built on investment and innovation that could support vertical integration, I've said that one earlier, economic growth and job creation, promote productivity, and moving up the global value chain through greater innovation and investment, as well as see to better functioning of financial market, particularly making sure central banks do their job to make sure that it is now easier to secure loans based on credit histories of those operators, and ensure that credit market can help to facilitate more product, more process in the market, improve farms' access to long-term competitive financing to expand production and facilitate more extensive trade, and improve it, as well as improve the credit market that will provide expanded access to the financial services to wider population so as to increase efficiency and enhance gains from trade. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. There should be a way we can do virtual class. Only God knows how that works now. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much for that high-level presentation. You know, and this conversation definitely is ongoing. At the end of this session, we will be issuing communiques to also ensure that we are putting governments on the toes and policies around that. That definitely needs to be worked with. Definitely featuring that. And I think a key takeaway for me is, you know, the key areas for innovation, which is, you know, process and also product. You know, we need to ensure that we're doing both level and also at, you know, a macro level. So without wasting so much of our time, I would like to just introduce the in-depth, more granular and more organic in the conversations, because we're dealing with actual practitioners who are on the field, who are involved in this, they understand the challenges, and, you know, they know where the shoe pinches and what needs to be done. So without
Okay, I think my colleague lost his network. So we're going to introduce the moderator of the program, Mr. Shola Usedemi, and he will take over the conversation leading forward in this webinar. So Mr. Shola is the lead partner 14365, an organization that leverages on one-stop shop technology, and he will be taking this conversation forward. Over to you, Mr. Shola.
Hello, Winifred. Hello, good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for setting this up, and actually thanks for inviting me onto this panel. I think Okwe is back.
Oh, okay, yes, he is.
Okay, I don't know if Okwe has one or two things to add before I jump into the conversation.
No, it's produced all the other panelists. Let's just go ahead.
Okay, not a problem. So thanks for setting this up. To start with, I think it's a very, very fantastic conversation. It's a conversation that should actually be held quite often. And I've seen some top names, and that was a major attraction for me to join this panel. So I want to say welcome to everybody who is on the panel, and also welcome to everybody who's joining into the conversation. I think the conversation that should be held, that should have actually been held quite a while ago. Seeing there's some background noise. Okay, I think the conversation that should have actually been held quite a while ago.
Sorry, let me add. I was going to add, please, if we're not speaking at the time, can we mute our mics, please?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
I think it's a conversation that should have been held quite a while ago, because basically we're months down the line into the actualization of the policy, and we're still having a conversation linked around this, around the African Free Trade Continental Agreement and how SMEs can key into it, basically, you know. And we need to remain competitive as a market, as a key player in not just the West African trade, but also in terms of Africa as a region. And I think this panel would actually give us an insight into how Nigerians and SMEs, and also how Nigerians SMEs can compete in the market from across West Africa and also across the whole of Africa. So thanks everybody again, once again, for joining this panel. So I have a couple of fantastic members on the panel today. I'll just do a rough introduction of them. I have Ambassador Ayo Olukanni, who I think did the introduction. I think he's signed out, if I'm correct.
No, he's here. He's still with us.
Okay, he's still with us. Okay, so I'll just run a brief preview. I'll just run a brief review about the panelists, starting with Ambassador Ayo. So Ambassador Ayo is the Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chamber of Commerce, Industries, Mines and Agriculture, NACCIMA. Over the years, Ambassador Olukanni has started at the intersection of the public and private sector in supporting Nigeria's interest in international trade and SME growth. He'll be speaking on the role of innovation and local content development as part of the Leadership Discussion. So welcome to the panel, Ambassador. All right, so I have the second member on the panel. I've got Professor Jonathan Aremu, who just gave us a fantastic presentation quite a couple of minutes ago. Professor Aremu is a consultant at ECOWAS on common investment market. He's also a professor of international economic relations at Covenant University, Nigeria. He's an expert in drafting of the current Pan-African Investment Code for African Union, and will be speaking on the role of innovation and local content development as part of the Leadership Discussion as well. So Professor, thank you for joining us today. So the third person is Mrs. Toyin Umesiri. Interestingly enough, I see her pop up on LinkedIn quite often, and I'm quite like, I keep seeing the conversations going on. I've never joined it, so I'm quite excited to actually meet her today for the first time. A brief profile of Mrs. Umesiri. She's the CEO of Nazaru LLC, the founder of the acclaimed Trade with Africa Business Summit, and also leads the discussion of the African Trade Continental Agreement Network, Africa Export Listing, Nigeria Investment Conference, and several other global initiatives. She's a global influencer, international trade expert, a trusted advisor and business coach to trade and investment stakeholders around the world. And welcome to the panel, Mrs. Umesiri. Nice to finally meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And then also I have Alhaji Sani Garba. He is the co-founder of Business Visa and Trainings Limited. He's an aggregator and mobilizer of SMEs across Nigeria and has successfully engineered business ideas, strategies, effective planning, packaging, and branding of Nigerian products. Alhaji Garba is a leading expert in exportation, and he'll be speaking on the role of innovation and local content development as part of this conversation. So Alhaji Garba, thank you very much for joining us today. So I think I want to confirm if we have Dr. Adiniro in attendance. Okay, yeah, I can see Dr. Adiniro there. So I'll read a brief profile on Dr. Adiniro. Dr. Adiniro is the Director of Research at the Center of Study of Economics of Africa. He's an expert in education, health, and public sector economics, project cycle management, and development cooperation with field experience in Nigeria and South Africa. He led the research team by CSEA in collaboration with CIPE that examined the potential impact of African Free Trade Continental Agreement on SMEs in Nigeria. Dr. Adiniro has led several other projects with funding from Department for International, DFID, United Nations Office on South-South Cooperation, the Education Commission, Southern Voice, Save the Children, amongst others. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Adiniro. So I think last on the list I have is Dr. Olasode. My apologies for that. Dr. Olasode is, yes, I've got him on there. Dr. Olasode is an international chartered accountant, economist, turnaround expert, international development advisor and transformational leadership consultant. He's the group managing director of TL First Consulting Group. Dr. Olasode has acted as a catalyst for capacity building, transformation, leadership, development across Africa and sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you very much for joining us, Doctor. So without wasting more time and to dig into most of the key discussions of today, and like I said earlier, I think it's actually important we have these conversations on a regular basis. The African Free Trade Continental Agreement coming into play has been a fantastic idea. Unfortunately, it's taking so long, in terms of the way we look at it. I, as a perspective, is for a trader who's based out of, let's say, Tejo Show Market in Lagos, he should see Dar es Salaam or Abidjan as an equal opportunity for him as the same way he potentially sees Kano. And I think that's the key thing around the African Free Trade Continental Agreement in terms of streamlining the process for Africans to be able to trade and move across borders. So I'll start with what I think is the first point of contact, starting with Mrs. Toyin Umesiri. In regards to, I can imagine we have quite a number of SMEs on here who are quite keen they see an opportunity and the question is, oh, wow, this is very interesting. So I can export my goods, let's say, to Abidjan, to Accra, to Tema, to Takoradi. And they see an opportunity to trade in those markets, and they're constantly questioning, how do I source, or where do I even start from? Can you give us an insight, some basic insights for traders, SMEs joining on this panel, to be able to say, okay, this is a good starting point for you to be able to take that conversation and go to the market and explore Africa.
Okay. Can you hear me, everyone?
I can hear you perfectly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And thank you to Mr. Olasode and his team for the invitation. Such an honor to share the panel with Ambassador as well. So all protocols observed. I think the first thing we have to do is make sure people realize that not everybody can participate in AfCFTA. Because there's something along the line of how AfCFTA has been marketed and celebrated, which is fantastic, but we have to bring it home. Because the way I try to explain it, this is like the Olympics of trade. And just as the Olympics just concluded, right, we need to understand that only the best of the best get to go out there and compete. In my classes, I like to teach people to understand you need to know your local market, your regional market, and the international market. And the rules of engagement, when you start crossing borders, they look different. So the first thing is capacity development. If you do not have the capacity, you may not be able to participate. And that's where the role of the government comes in. How is the government going to build capacity in small, medium size? Because the bigger businesses, the bigger brands, they have the capacity and they can hire consultants like us to help them develop winning strategy, export strategy, and all of that. But the base of Africa is really the SMEs. But the key is that when you talk about exports, be it regional or international, exporting is an expensive game. Very, very expensive. So that's why you usually have to work with the government. Even in the US, as advanced as people see it, the government plays a heavy load. They bear a heavy burden of making sure they're bringing resources into the private sector for training, for capacity building, because if the SMEs and small, medium size can export, it creates and impacts the economy. They are able to create more jobs. So this is all about economic development at the end of the day. So the other framework I want to really just introduce today is the why. Why is this important? Why should the private sector be leaning heavily into this space? Because a lot of times people understand the tactical execution. They are more focused on how do we execute, but the big picture is so important. And the way I share the big picture is this dynamic of policy versus private sector, how both sides actually, should I say, make money. I want to bring this conversation to the ground level so everybody can understand what I'm saying. This is about wealth creation. Governments need money. Governments have expenses, they have expenditures, they have to pay salary. In fact, because they need money, right? There's a way government makes money. In fact, they tax private sector because of this, right? So that's the first thing. Government is looking for money and they tax the private sector. They usually engage in foreign aid, foreign aid. I just want to really fast track and summarize this so that people understand as we go on with the conversation why this is important for the private sector. The way the government funds itself is through government programs,
it's not
all of those programs, right? But the way the private sector can make money is what we're talking about. If you're not participating in government contracts, which is probably 1% of the population usually gets to participate in government contract, the rest of the population, the rest of the 200 million Nigerians, how do they make money? How do they bring bread to the table? This is about economic development, right? So productivity, producing products that you can sell in your local market or expand to your regional market or international market is how you expand your business. Or making sure your service, you can deliver it excellently in your local market or expanding it to your regional market or international market is the way you grow. So a lot of times we model these things up. We're focused on the government. The government too is doing its own. And the government, the reason I said I put my comment out there is that the government is very, very savvy. African governments are very, very savvy in crafting policies and mobilize and doing what in a way they're supposed to do. However, policies that affect the private sector to generate funds to create wealth is where AfCFTA sits. And even policies like AGOA and all of that. So I just wanted to make sure people understand that this is about private sector engagement. The policy is here And this is how the private sector gets to benefit and participate in commerce. So I just wanted to put that framework. And also I look forward to hearing the other fellow panelists as well. But I just want people to understand that this is a game changer for the private sector. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Umesiri. Quite insightful. I can imagine you're quite experienced dealing with different clients, from the multinationals to the large players in this, in terms of their expansion strategy in regards to export. And I believe your feedback has actually been quite helpful. I would move on to Alhaji Garba. I can imagine through Alhaji Garba's day-to-day, he deals with a lot of SMEs and a lot of players in this market who are constantly looking and thinking, okay, how do I make it work? And he must have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, if I can use the word. You know, transactions that have gone fantastic, the relationships that have been built from that, and transactions that have gone sour, right? From this part of the world, dealing with, as a freight forwarder, dealing with exporters and players in this market, a key issue revolves around quality. There's a high issue around quality rejection, and this is quite common with goods leaving the ports in Nigeria, either via road or via the seaport. Now, we obviously are aware about the issue. Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
All right, apologies. I thought I was actually
Okay.
Okay, awesome. So I say thank you. I'll probably run that again because I assumed everyone could hear me from initial stage. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Umesiri. I think your feedback has actually been quite helpful to quite a number of SMEs on this conversation. So I'll move on to the next panelist I'd like to have get on the conversation, which is Alhaji Garba. Like I was saying previously, I can imagine on a day-to-day basis, he deals with a lot of SMEs, and he must have seen all sorts of transactions, the good, the bad, and the ugly, you know, relationships built and relationships that have gone sour. On the ones that have gone sour, I'm sure a recurring thing that he's probably seen, they've gone sour because there have been issues around rejection, or basically issues around valuation of cargo. As a player in this space, in 1.365, we see situations like that where cargo arrives at a destination and the cargo is either destroyed even by the authorities there, or even arriving at the warehouse whereby they say, okay, it's got mold, it's got this, it's got that, it's got aflatoxin or something. Now, I'd like to get Alhaji Garba's take on it in terms of, for the SMEs in this conversation, for Nigerian SMEs, how do we avoid that situation raising its ugly head? How do we avoid situations whereby goods originating from, or how can we minimize it to the barest possible, where rejection is not a common topic that is recurring in the conversation? I'd like Alhaji Garba's take on that. Quality control is a key thing. Hello, Alhaji Garba. He seems he's still muted.
If you're there, okay.
Okay.
What's happening?
Hello, Alhaji Garba.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Hello?
Can you hear us now? Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, you're back now.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right then. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. So
You were commenting. Yes, please.
Okay, not a problem. So I said basically, I can imagine your role on a day-to-day basis. You're dealing with SMEs, and you must have seen all sorts of transactions: the good, the bad, the ugly. You must have seen the good relationships built over years between buyers and sellers. Buyers from this part of the world who have built relationships with their, sellers from this part of the world who've built relationships with their buyers abroad and co. But you must have also seen the bad ones whereby goods were rejected for whatever reason, right? Now, how do you think we can minimize that reoccurrence of rejection of cargo or goods originating from this part of the world, because that's a common topic that tends to happen. As Nigeria becomes a key player in African Free Trade Continental Agreement.
Absolutely right.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, in this regard, you see, first of all, we have to give a recognition to the SMEs and the product themselves. And beside that, you see, Nigeria and its product, we are unique. God has blessed us with not just one commodity in a single variety. It gave us several varieties in each commodity. So we are now leveraged to introduce these varieties, give them standard, introduce them to the world and give them standard of our own within Nigeria first. And when we are relying on certain categories, and when we say we are exporting to certain part of the world, which part of the world? All transactions give you specification of what requirements are. But then you see, we don't have a place or a gathering where we can now harmonize all these things that we have in Nigeria, give them standard of our own local standard first. Let us not be at the defensive side, allowing the outside world or the buyer detecting what should that be, because he has no knowledge of the standards we have. We can give him a better standard. Because of this variety of species, you can see, for instance, let's say beans. In Nigeria, you can have more than 17 or 20 varieties of beans, which some parts. So we have to now give them things together. So we are left to be in the hands of a buyer who doesn't have a knowledge of what we have, and the seller is desperate to just make a supply, and then maybe he cannot meet up the same variety that was given to him. He now added with something. And again, issue of transporting it, especially in Francophone countries, because of the barrier of languages, they felt threatened. You saw they delayed these goods, and any order that was given, it has specific time to meet up with. So all these things, we have to now come back to the drawing board, back home first. Let us harmonize all these things at home, give them a place of a standard, and also possibly give them prizes so that it will be monitored. And anybody, I tell you, if we can just stay back home and get the things together, the dollar will come chasing us, not us going for the dollar. And the route, they will negotiate with us on a smooth transactions, how this thing should be transported. But look at us in abundance. Nobody cares about the SMEs. Can you remember any, or can you tell me a specific place which is now recognized as a marketplace for SMEs? No. They have left them with government policies everywhere. And I tell you, look at the majority of SMEs. They don't like all this classroom lecture or whatever. They are tired of it. Let's go physical. Let's harmonize all these things. I tell you, with this African agreement that has been signed, if Nigeria will take a lead, let's organize like an exhibition, call upon all the ECOWAS or the African countries involved. Let's see the products where even companies come and join us together. We will trash this thing and take maximum advantage of it. So my contribution on this, I think we really need to, if Nigeria really want to take a lead and take advantage of all these things, and I tell you the majority of all these SMEs, and they feel really depressed at the moment, neither from the government side, and the unfortunate thing is that SME side, but I tell you that's where the money is. I can assure everybody that when we now come back and look at it, to find which product is sellable out there, and we have them in abundance. In Nigeria, everything grows, and it grows at its best. So I think that's, I will pause at the moment, listen to what your contribution would say.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Laji Garba. That's a fantastic feedback that I think so many SMEs can actually tap into. I would like to I'd like to get Dr. Olasode on the next question, and that revolves around the part of the NEPC.
Right. Sorry. Let me add that no, Dr. Olasode is not on the session right now, so you have it's only the one who is on. Everyone else is on except for him.
Okay. Not a problem. All right, that's no problem. So I'll probably like to get this conversation to the Director General, who I can actually see out there, and it's a two-step question, but I'll take it from the part of the first one. On the first part, we're still seeing issues around the borders, especially in Nigeria, basically, right? I was in Ghana at some point last month, and I was hearing stories. You see a lot of exporters who export from Ghana and down to Nigerian markets. One of the famous ones I'm quite aware about is Casaprenco, who do the bottled gin, and they send it to Nigeria, and then, but over a period of time, we've seen issues around the borders, and we've seen trade slowing down. What parts do you think the government needs to do to improve upon that process? Because today is shut down, tomorrow is open, next tomorrow is shut down. There's a lot of instability going on in there. And if it takes, I don't know, on average, 3+ weeks to get a truck to move your goods from Lagos to Ghana, then it's not competitive. There's a problem on that, right? What part can we do to streamline? What part can the government do to actually streamline and ensure basically we're not having issues, repetitive issues around border controls and movement of goods cross-border from Nigeria?
Hello?
Hello.
Who are you requesting to answer that question? Is it for me or for somebody else?
From you, sir.
Well, okay. I thought because I had spoken, way back, and of course there are others who on this panel who have not even spoken to. I thought maybe perhaps we can give them the opportunity so that I don't dominate that. But subsequently, I will come back to you, because I'm not only dealing with theory, the theoretical perspective, as far as these issues are concerned. I sit here as Director General of NACCIMA. When you see me disappear, it means I've gone on to my section that deals with certificate of origin to be issued to those who want to go, who want to export. Because I face it every day and I know it, then I'll be able to speak to you and give you practical example, because that is what we deal with here in terms of people who want to, who at least within the framework of ECOWAS now, where the practical issues are, the ETLS, which is like a test for what we'll see in AfCFTA, because we deal with that as far as so that I can share experiences with you on that. So that I don't seem to be the captain of the flight. Let me just, let us give opportunity to others also. Then I'll come back to you.
That's fine. So I'll like Dr. Adeniran to have a conversation on that in regards to government support, in regards to the borders and easing trade across broad borders. How can we simplify? What part can the government play in that, in ensuring we're not having issues for the SMEs who are trying to tap in, like Mrs. Umesiri explained rightly? African Free Trade Continental Agreement is basically for those who can actually execute. It's not for everybody. For those who want to go ahead with it, who think, look, this is a fantastic opportunity. What part can the government do, especially around the borders, easing trade? I'd like your take on that.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Can hear you perfectly.
Just to mention that when we talked about barriers to trade, most times we try to divide it into three. Number one is barriers in the border. which are structural issues like you talked about electricity and the rest. We talked about barriers on the border, which is the ports itself, or the boundary in terms of what kind of trade, and those beyond the border. Now, in terms of which one is like the most important challenges in Nigeria, I've spoken to a lot of people that are in this space, and one of the things people emphasize is the barriers at the border. In terms of kind of lack of structure or systematic process, lack of to just address the key issue we are discussing, innovation around our border. I mean, the process is still very conservative and traditional. And in essence, it's also very susceptible to corruption. And so those kind of border challenges are quite huge. And it's not only limited to Nigeria. So if you, and that's why one of the problem or challenges that African Continental Free Trade might encounter in how do you deal with customs authority across many countries in Africa. But again, this is anticipated in the agreement, and that's where there's a grievance mechanism system, whereby if you have some challenges in selling your goods or services to other countries, there is a mechanism where you can seek redress. And there is actually a channel that each individual, I mean, it's so simple that it's online, but of course there are some language barriers there that anybody can walk up to and make complaints in terms of non-trade barriers challenges that they are facing. So it's about how do we manage success of this? I mean, it's about overcoming multiple challenges at our individual country level, in the challenges, structural challenges in our country, and looking at changing our system. And that is why the conversation today is so crucial, because we are discussing innovation. And most times when people talk about innovation, we tend to think about a technological process. And I like the perspective Professor Aremu has added to that discussion in terms of and scope innovation, whereby we change the process, we embed a kind of the structure of how we manage the system changes. So if you look at, I mean, historical trend in terms of what has happened, a lot of economists will tell you that IT and information technology, the revolution in internet, has not so much added to productivity in many countries. And one of the ways to explain that paradox is that if an innovation doesn't actually change process, it doesn't actually have huge impact on the economy. It doesn't have those kind of productivity impact that you want to enable it to see. So if we want to make gains in this kind of trade, we need those kind of innovation. We need to encourage it. We can't still be doing our production, I mean, our agriculture in rain-fed agriculture, manufacturing without electricity, whereby we cannot compete with other countries. With that, we cannot actually make a lot of sizable gain in terms of what gains for a country like Guinea would be from African Continental Free Trade Agreement. I mean, we have a lot of research, including from my Center for Study of Economics of Africa. And what it clearly points to is that on average, African countries expect to have like 2.38% growth with African Continental Free Trade Agreement. If you look at the number for Nigeria, it's around 5.5, which means we are below the average. And it means that there is a lot of countries that will gain sizably, but for our own, in our own context, that might not be the case. And how do we change that narrative? How do we ensure that we become, I mean, this kind of trade deliver much for our country, for our continent also? It's about innovation that we are discussing today. And when we went out and we were able to speak to some SMEs in Nigeria, one of the sad things about people, I mean, it's about overemphasis on the technological innovation and neglecting the kind of management and skill innovation that are quite crucial in order to actually embed and engineer a kind of significant progress for whatever kind of benefits that African continental free trade. To rethinking those kind of process, looking at how do we bring in micro, small and medium scale enterprises into that conversation and into that changing process. And also, it's also, remember when we talk about innovation, the local content and local kind of knowledge too, because an innovation that doesn't resonate with the users, it's not going to work. Lachem Pritchett at Harvard alluded to this in his work around why AK-47 was so popular. It's not the best gun in the world, but what is so good about AK-47 is that anybody can use it. But the system that Americans were building, I mean, the kind of guns they were building is meant for people with technical ability. And at the end of the day, it is practicability, usability of the product that works over, I mean, technicality of it. So it's about the ability to use it very well and efficiently. So that will be my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate your contribution on that, Dr. Adeniro. I have a question here that's been thrown in by a member of the audience, and I'm just going to read it out. I would like Professor Aremu's contribution on this. If he can potentially give us an insight, that would be helpful. And it's from Olushile. And I'm just going to read it out quickly based on what she's thrown out there. It's a three-way question, but I'll start with the first part. Thank you for this webinar. The first question I have is, for Nigeria to effectively be a player, what plans do the government have in addressing its poor infrastructure, security, power, technology, governance, knowing that the effective and dependable infrastructure ensures profitability and high productivity? So what plans do you think the government have in place, or what plans should the government have in place? Because for a Nigerian producer or manufacturer who is in most cases having to run on 24 hours diesel, to be able to compete out of Ghana or Togo, where power is not necessarily a major concern or major issue, a level playing ground must at least be established. If not, there's no way you're going to be productive. So what are the steps, or what plans have the government put in place, or what plans will the government need to put in place to ensure that happens?
Thanks for that question, and that is the question which everybody have been asking since this issue of discussion of African continental free trade area started, that we have infrastructural problem here and there. But let me say this one. Where National Action Committee on African Continental Free Trade Area was put across, was set up by the government. That shows the readiness of the government to be able to tackle some of this. But I think that the organized private sector, we have to continue reminding the government what they are feeling with respect to infrastructure. Nobody will come here to be able to assemble our infrastructure for us. It will be our duty. So it is the duty of the government to get all this thing done. And I believe that the question they ask is just normal. It's correct. It's rather unfortunate that this question is coming up without solution. But I think that government need to sit up, because we must be able to produce competitively. Even the innovation we are talking about relies so much on some of these efficient infrastructure to be able to be on. And also important is the fact that if you cannot produce under a very good infrastructural efficiency, then you will not be able to be competitive with other countries, and they will just run over you, and then you will buy their product alone. I think the only thing we can do is that we just have to be talking to government to be able to put in place that infrastructure deficiency and correcting them as much as possible. Everybody agree that without efficient infrastructure, you can't compete. There's no way you can. Just I agree with the first speaker that not everybody can compete because you have to put your infrastructure in space very well before you can do it. But again, if you arrive at a competitive ground late because of your lack of infrastructure, then you take the crumbs, you won't take the best. So it's better we actually sit up and get this thing done because NGL will not come and put our road or every other thing we need to do. Will not put it down for us or electricity. It's ourselves. So let NACCIMA and the private sector people continue to remind government what they need to do. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Professor. So I'm just going to actually throw the next question at you because I think you have a bit more insight into that based on your part in drafting the initial policies. So I'll throw the next question at you, and I would like your feedback on that. And it's from the same, it's from Olukanni as well, Olukanni. And the question revolves around, since majority of African countries still lean on their direct investment, will foreign countries not unduly influence policies so as to favor them? What's your take on that, sir?
Is the question to me again? I can't hear you, sir. Please, can you repeat? I can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, awesome, sir. So I said I've got another question from the initial policies, and the question says, since majority of African countries still lean or depend on inward foreign direct investment, FDI, will foreign countries not unduly influence policies so as to favor them in regards to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement?
That's a equally very nice question. Let me say this one, and then maybe we warn ourselves on this.
Okay.
A Chinese company that is already operating in South Africa is a corporate entity of South Africa, right?
Yeah.
A French company that is already in the Republic of Benin is a corporate personality of the Republic of Benin. And therefore, they are going to compete with us. And nothing stop all these companies from receiving certain kind of assistance from their overseas parent company. Why? Because they may be affiliates. Unilever may have an affiliate in South Africa, and nothing stops Unilever in South Africa to be able to do anything with Unilever in Nigeria under certain preferential arrangements. So there is nothing we can do about that. All what we need to do is to ensure that the transnational corporation actually assisting their affiliates within the African Continental Free Trade Area. They do not violate what the treaty says. And the treaty has quite a lot of provisions to be able to guide against undue incentive given to a foreign company that are operating in Africa to be able to participate and make sure that they marginalize the domestic institution in Africa. So what can we do? We have to sit up to be able to make sure we ensure we are ready to compete. The transnational corporations that already have their affiliate will continue to assist them. There's nothing you can do about that. So, but what we can do is just to make sure also that as much as possible, we put in policies that we assist our domestic enterprises as well, particularly the MSMEs. Period. Thank you.
Hello, Prof. Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for that feedback. I appreciate your feedback on that, Prof. So I'm going to throw the next question at Mrs. Umesiri, and I'd like your take on this. What parts do you potentially see for NACCIMA, Nigeria Export-Import Bank, and AfCFTA in supporting these SMEs to be able to, a key issue revolves around liquidity. You know, I've come across fantastic guys, fantastic exporters, or fantastic potential exporters, but liquidity is a key issue, right? What parts do you see the banks that are purely focused on supporting trade, what parts do you see they can play or in terms of supporting the growth of potential exporters from this market?
Okay, thank you so much. And even the previous question, if I could just say that the government is already being influenced by foreign participants. That influence is going to grow. But what people really need to worry about is, say, let's fast forward 10 years from now. If manufacturing is heavily controlled by foreign firms versus native born, what usually happens is whoever controls labor controls the government, right? So whoever is employing majority of your people gets to influence the direction of policy. So the influence is always going to be there, but it gets stronger and it gets deeper as they start controlling labor. So employment, right? So if you have a foreign firm that is employing, 50,000 Nigerians, 100,000 Nigerians, all of a sudden they become extremely more powerful, particularly because if you throw them and you say, do this, and they say, no, we're going to close shop and leave. That literally means 100,000 or 50,000 of your citizens lose their job. And that's the long game. And that's why it is so important when you talk about local content, it's not just that buying and selling, is who is controlling the industries, who owns the industry, because whoever marshals labor, that's why we have labor laws and all of those things in the US. Labor always directs government. So that's just because your tax, everything is connected. So I just wanted to add that on to the previous question. Now, when it comes to role of AfroExim Bank and NEXIM Bank, because I actually do some work with them. For example, in Intra-African trade, I played an ambassador role for AfroExim Bank. I was in Cairo, Egypt in 2018. And then the next engagement is in Durban, South Africa. So AfroExim Bank is doing something, they're stepping forward. One thing I'll say is they are going over and beyond their duty because they have to. Here's why. Financial institutions are in the business of financing trade, all of these things. That's all they are trying to do. But what they are finding is that they also need to grow the transactions, right? You need to, if you're going to make your money out of interest rates on transaction, the way you're going to grow as a bank, even if it's not a government bank, is that you want to grow the base of transactions. And if you're looking at the actors that are supposed to grow the base of the transaction, and you're not seeing enough activities and mobilization and commercial activities in that place, then in your own interest, you can then start playing a big brother role of organizing that market. And that's one of the things AfroExim has done in partnership with African Export-Import Bank to marshal the launch of the Intra-African Trade Fair. Now the second edition is here. I was part of the first one. If they didn't have to do it, they wouldn't have done it, but it's required. It's required to organize the private sector, because when you mobilize the private sector and transactions start emerging, then they can step in as the bank and say, we'll finance your transaction, right? So that's something that heavily AfroExim Bank is, they did the big brothers play of, okay, AfCFTA is here. We know it's going to grow in trade within the African continent. We can't sit around waiting for that trade to just happen. How do we stimulate activities, commercial engagement, commercial activities, just to stimulate and help activate and catalyze this engagement? And that's what they've done through the introduction of the Intra-African Trade Fair. Is saying we want everybody to start knowing one another. We want everybody to connect with one another, start mastering other economies, and start talking to one another. And that has nothing to do with government yet. And those are the things the private sector can be doing today. There are some things, like one of the things I'm just trying to throw some things here. I hope people walk away with this nugget is the private sector needs to stop outsourcing its responsibility to government. The private sector needs to know what the government is and what they can do and what they cannot do. The government they are not in the business of, networking. Because there's nothing stopping a Nigerian today from networking with a Kenyan and understanding and assessing the Kenyan market for their products and services. That can be done today, this moment, for you to start understanding. If you want to penetrate Kenya or South Africa, the government is not the one to help you do that, right? There's nothing stopping the private sector from starting to explore. Now, the other thing I want to also introduce is that inaction is very dangerous. A lot of times people are waiting, they're waiting, right? While you're waiting, Egypt is already mastering Nigeria. While you're waiting, Morocco, they're coming in. While you're waiting, South Africa. So even if you don't do anything, even if Nigeria does nothing in the private sector, guess what? By December, I've been telling people by December, in your own market, competition is coming to meet you. So it is no longer my product. It's your product is going to have to compete with the rest of Africa, whether in your own local market or in their own market. The question is, which one do you want to play? Because in your own local market, your market share is going to be beaten into by all the other economies that are going to penetrate Nigeria. So Nigeria is never going to be the same again. Right. So either way, innovation has to happen. Because when they start putting your own product next to an Egyptian product or a Moroccan hair care line, if you are in the, for example, beauty, I have my own beauty lipstick brand and all of that. So if, let's say you are a beauty, you're providing hair care and it's a growing industry, that's what you're producing, and today you're selling in Nigeria. Yes, you can decide to expand, which you should be, but even if you don't expand, within a couple of months on those ShopRite shelves, your brand will sit not just as your brand, but Egyptian brand, Moroccan brand, South African brand, and then the customer gets to pick which one. So that's something I also want people to know. Inaction has its consequences. Innovation has to happen. And this is a good thing for Nigeria because for a long time, Nigeria has been a closed to be done. We do our own things. We are comfortable and all of that. This time around, it's no longer going to work because the thing is that the customer is going to win from all of this competition. Competition is going to really drive innovation. So I'll just stop right there. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Mrs. Umesiri. So while being cautious of time, I can imagine everybody has a very busy day, especially Mrs. Umesiri, who's just about to start her day. Okay. So I'll wrap it up with Ambassador Olukanni, who can give us a bit of insight into how NACCIMA has played a part in terms of driving that conversation and what SMEs can also expect moving forward. I mean, he was highlighting some fantastic things around the certificate of origin. If he can actually give us a bit more insight in terms of the role NACCIMA is playing in growing and ensuring this conversation happens, and what SMEs can expect to support in terms of support from NACCIMA.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me quickly address these issues. Since like I said, I sit on a seat we're not just involved only in the interpretation and exposition, discussion, the theoretical perspective of us. EFCC is concerned. We walk the talk. And when I say we walk the talk, I'm talking about practical. Just 2 days ago, this week, today is Thursday, I guess.
Correct.
This week, we've had 3 companies come in here with an eye on the AfCFTA in terms of inquiries, they want to join NACCIMA, what will be involved. So I'm telling you, people practically are doing it. It's on. Some of those companies in terms of what is it that is going to go on. Then let me also address briefly what I think Mrs. Umesiri talked about. People are not folding their hands. I just came back from Abuja, the organized private sector of Nigeria. There are 5 of us, MAN, NACCIMA, NACI, NASME, as well as NECA. We went to Abuja to discuss these issues as far as the AfCFTA is concerned. So we're not folding our hands as the impression which has been given about what exactly is to be done. And consultation is also going on. That is among us. That is the OPSN, Organized Private Sector of Nigeria. It's one of the issues. And we invited the Minister of Trade and Industry, Otuma Adeni, and Mrs. Zainab Ahmed from the Ministry of Finance in terms of the discussions upon it. So all those ones are going on. But apart from that, we're also closely involved with the NAF, the National Action Committee on the FCTA, which is headed by my brother, what's his name now? Well, is the executive secretary of the AfCFTA himself. So we're involved because don't forget, a lot of discussions have gone on to identify the respective areas which are areas of our strength. So all these things are going on as far as that is concerned. In terms of so it is necessary for people who want to key into it, MSME, to also look at the respective areas which the National Action Committee and the AfCFTA have been involved with us in the private sector. Because if you don't know what is out there, what's going on, you will not be able to play. So these are things which we are going out, which we are doing. And I now want to give you a specific example in terms of the question of preparation that nobody's fault. I mean, people, we're talking about innovation here. We're talking about leadership here. Now, in NACCIMA, we work closely with the AfCFTA Bank. We know AfCFTA has said that they do have some funds to be able to support SMEs. So one of the areas we look at is the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment System. The PAPS is one of the key areas because when you're talking about trading, if you don't sort out the crisis and the problems of payment, you will not be able to go anywhere in terms of the context of, quantitizing the abstraction as far as the EFC. So what we did, of course, we've held a series of meetings online with AfCFTA as far as the PAPS is concerned. There is also a payment system. There's also another system which we're also closely working with the AfCFTA. And that is the MANSA platform. Please go and check it for more information on that, which is a know your customer platform, as well as an area as far as the question of due diligence is concerned, the MANSA platform. I mean, I'm giving you a practical example of what we are talking about in terms of providing leadership, in terms of innovation, to be able to to be able to go into this as far as this is concerned. And let me also say this. We got an indication from a Rwanda small little startup, Makimbo, and they reached out to NACCIMA that in context of the AfCFTA, we want to try and reach your members through our platform. They are based in Rwanda, and we've held meetings with them. I'm giving you all this practical example of the issue and the question of, against the background of the thematic focus of our discussion of innovation, leadership, as well as enhancing our competitiveness, and then using the IT as well, because so that we can understand, and of course, in the course of our discussion, be able to go. So those are the things that are going on as far as this is concerned, and of course, like I said, continuous education of all members of the private sector. We started a dialogue series. We'll continue it. And the practical example which I've given to you are things which, of course, we are doing as far as the chambers of commerce, national chambers of commerce, to be able to make take advantage of what exactly of what will come as far as the AfCFTA itself is concerned. So let the conversation continue. We're ready to share our own experiences. I've given you the example of what we're doing with MANSA platform in terms of KYC and due diligence, because when people want to trade with you as well, and they know you're on the MANSA in context of the AfCFTA, they will be able to say, yes, it is a company which is worth trading with. Or if you say, if you also come along with on the PAPS itself, the Pan-African Payment System, because all of these are all tied up in this area. And don't forget, we've also concentrated a lot on the whole question of production, manufacturing. The services is a key area. And already we can say that in the area of services, Nigeria seems to have the lead. When I served in Nairobi in Kenya as High Commissioner, as acting High Commissioner in the mission in 2003, 2007, we didn't have the Nigerian banks. But fast forward to this period, you have your banks, they in fact dominate. Across West Africa, Access Bank, GTB Bank, UBA, they are all there. So that means the Nigerian, in the area of services, we are playing already as far as that of course is concerned. And not to talk of the creativity sector. There's no way you go across Africa, you will not hear of a Davido music, or you will not hear of a mobile, KPK, or you're talking about Olamide, and all of that, on and on. You know what I'm talking about. It's been a very useful conversation. Let us continue it. As NACCIMA, we're on the practical side of all of this, and that's why, of course, we are saying that we will continue to work on it and look at how we can enhance the chances of SMEs to take advantage of the AfCFTA. Well, thank you very much. I may have to at this point to disappear.
Could I just congratulate? Congratulate him? Yeah.
Right. I want to just add a quick one, right? So here, if you don't mind. So, and this is piggybacking on what Mrs. Toyin said earlier about there's a price for inaction, right? There are consequences for it. So ignorance cannot be an option. And Alhaji Sani also mentioned something around, when we talk about the MSMEs, we always seem to forget the conditions around that last S, the very small guys who, have illiteracy issues, who have access issues. They are like the bottom of the pyramid, and the very base of people who are answerable to that data around poverty capital of the world, right? So we have to be careful around here. Now, so that conversation, what do you think? How do we get, he mentioned, Alhaji Sani was saying something earlier around, these guys are probably not able in this conversation. A lot of conversations have happened, we are not reaching them. And they are the greatest people who are dealing with existential issues to their business. So how do we ensure that those small guys, how do we help them? What do we need to do?
Can I answer that question briefly? Since I'm on ground, I'm not in the Big Apple, neither am I in Melbourne or Canberra, which are city, or Tel Aviv, where I had lived and worked before. Now, I dig ground here. Now, like I said, the organized private sector of Nigeria consists of 5 of us. MAN, Manufacturing Association of Nigeria; NACCIMA, Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Scale Enterprises; NACCI, Nigerian Association of Small and Small Scale Industry; NACCIMA, as well as NECA. And what we try to do and encourage is that, take for example, NACCIMA is the Nigerian Association of Small and Small Scale Enterprises. And then we have NACCI, Small Scale Industrialists. These are part of the avenues through which we can reach out to those people. And within the organized private sector of Nigeria, we meet quarterly, regularly at DG's level, president level, technical level. We discuss all these issues and challenge the respective members. Please carry the message to your respective members. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. If you are struggling with your factory, running between generator and inverter, and then praying that the electricity, EKDC will provide it's not an easy thing when you get invited for a meeting. But we encourage them within the framework of the organized private sector, and then using the respective members of the organized private sector, NACCIMA, NACCI, and others, to scale down and to cascade down all these issues in terms of, hey guys, wake up to it. Wake up and smell the coffee. And then, of course, also see how they can be assisted. It's a task that must be done. It is not a miraculous by magic wand. I was in Tel Aviv, and of course, the Israelis told me, you guys hawk miracles in your country. We Jewish people started the business of God. You have to work at it.
Absolutely.
So
if I could just congratulate His Excellency on all the incredible work. Even here, we recognize that work. That's how I got introduced to you, sir. So your work is definitely resounding. So I think, so this is incredible. So just to encourage, we need such leadership to keep pushing and pushing, right? Yeah. But one thing I just want to introduce lastly, at the grassroots level, what I just want to encourage people to do, I try to tell them, you need to personalize this at the ground for yourself. And there are 5 roles that we've designed that you could play. You could play the exporter role, where you're exporting your goods and your services. You could play an importer role, meaning you're also taking in products from other Africa, because they're going to need local players to be agents, distributor, because again, we've signed this agreement. So you can be an exporter, you can be an importer. There's also a role I call trade facilitator. Okay, you could be in the government as a trade facilitator, or a private sector where you're actually serving as a bridge. Because someone did mention, there are some grassroots, the manufacturers, they are very busy and all of that. You could actually build a business entirely around international trade, where you are facilitating and running transactions and closing deals on behalf of stakeholders. We also see the role of service providers, whether you are in freight for a freight forwarder, because the entire value chain, the supply chain, everybody needs to shake hands to move a product from the farm to the shelf, to move a product from Nigeria to Egypt. So again, exporter, importer, trade facilitator, service provider. And then final one is more of a consulting role, right? Consulting, advisory services, legal services to support AfCFTA. So that's one of the ways I help people to frame it. Like, not everybody needs to be exporting, a product, right? So people should just walk away knowing what role can I play? The youth, they have a very, very massive role, particularly the digitization of trade, the formalization of informal trade. The youth in India, they served a very frontline effort. The youth in China, the same. So digital technology, bringing in trade, facilitating trade using technology. We need to marshal our youth. They are very savvy, social media, marketing, so, all of these things. So when we talk about internet trade in general, all value chains would mature. So again, I want to congratulate His Excellency. It's such an honor to be here. It's just an honor to be here. And thank you to the other panelists and to the honorable moderator as well. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Umesiri. So I'm just going to add two things because I think it's important we discuss to wrap it up what Mr. Okwemi just highlighted in regards to how the micro, how they captured. I'm fortunate enough to work to digest the process around trade, especially around the freight forwarding. I spend, hello, can you hear me?
Please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I spend a lot of my time traveling around Nigeria, Port Harcourt, Kano, Dano Market, and you come across some of these guys, English, and they get involved in trade, especially export. I've seen exporters basically ship goods to whatever location it is. They went wrong on that conversation, and basically they're not getting their money back. I've seen that happen not once, I've seen that happen not twice. I know so many traders from Nigeria. There's a reputational challenge, there's a quality challenge. Terms is built around send me the goods and then I pay you when I sample it, right? Just to elaborate on that briefly, basically, I think it's important, especially for the micro guys and the small guys as well. Let's look at the potential as cooperatives. We tend to do a lot of, I will do everything like myself. The Mr. mentioned about before. Everybody has a part to play. So even if you sourcing, looking to export, if you work around your locality or your local government, you'll see 5 guys who are in the same space who in working in a cooperative where you can work together, working to approach different organizations as a cooperative and have a uniform voice. And that is one of the right steps to go about it.
You mentioned something. So there are solutions for these things you are talking about.
Okay.
In the US, my clients, I actually work with the US Export-Import Bank. They have export insurance. Okay. So what you just talked about. So for example, if you buy, and this is where maybe NACCIMA Bank can mirror this. So if my client buys EXIM, US Export, United States Export-Import Bank, export insurance, what it guarantees is if they export to Africa and there is no payment, the government guarantees that they will pay them 95% of the value of the invoice if that deal goes bad. And then the US government goes after that person, and nobody wants to deal with the US government. So what you just talked about, so these are, there are mechanisms, there are resources in play that we could start saying, okay, how do we provide advisory services to NACCIMA? That what you just described is a known issue. And what they do is to de-risk. They de-risk trade. Because you are sure, if you don't have that insurance, then if that deal goes, are you going to fly and start chasing people all over the place? No. So the government takes on, you buy the insurance before you export. And if anything goes by, you even have payment terms, 30 days, 60 days, just to get the flow of products to export. And if the deal goes bad, You collect your prepayment from the US government, 95% of the value of the invoice. So I just wanted to say there are instruments at the tactical level of transactions. There are different things that we also see here. So it's not just notorious that it's in Africa, it happens here as well.
Yeah, but as a matter of fact, actually NACCIMA actually have something similar to what you just mentioned. But I think there's a limited awareness basically about these facilities and the possibility and opportunity to tap into them. So you see so many people going blindly, not even aware that you can actually protect yourself when you're involved in this trade. And I think it's super, super important that there's a lot of awareness around some of the products being offered, especially by NACCIMA, to support Nigerian importers and exporters whenever they are playing a part in very, very important. So it's been a fantastic session. I have learned quite a lot on this session. And I want to appreciate everybody who's joined on the session, from Alhaji Garba to Professor Aremu to Mrs. Umesiri. Finally, good to meet you, like I said earlier, to Ambassador. We appreciate your time. And to everybody else who was on the panel, it's been a pleasure hosting this panel. And I thank you very much for joining me on this. I'll hand over to Okwe, and hopefully we can end today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I mean, it's been a very insightful conversation. We started at actually maybe 3 minutes after 12, and we still have people still going in. And like Ambassador said, it's an endless conversation. At least it's spent in the interim. We're still going to continue this conversation to see how well to ensure that we position Nigerian MSMEs to take advantage of this new largest free trade agreement in the world. Thank you very much. So joining us as well is the Group General Manager of TL First. He couldn't make it. He had an engagement with the Office of the Head of Service. So but he's back again to join us. So I would just like to welcome Dr. Olasode for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Opayemi. Just to be delighted to be called a general manager once again. My last job as general manager was about 30 years ago.
Right,
but that's fine. Thank you, Professor Aremu, Ambassador Olukanni. It's quite fascinating to listen to the discussions. Thank you, Mrs. Toyin Umesiri. I like the perspectives you brought in from the US. I do apologize I couldn't come earlier as we were getting ready to start. I got a call from the presidency for an urgent meeting. But I'm pleased to listen to some of the conversations. It appears that actually there's still one hand raised from one of the attendees. I don't know whether you've allowed questions or comments, but it's been a very busy session. Some people had to drop out after a couple of hours. But the comments I've received so far and the messages I've received has been that this session has been quite interactive, engaging, inspiring, and enlightening. Thanks to the moderator, Shola, who's been able to facilitate this session. We have another session coming up next month, which looks more around the public-private partnerships. Some of what you've said today alludes to the need for more government initiatives and not just policies, but activities to make that support a reality for micro and small and medium enterprises. We also have another one coming up in a couple of months that looks at how we could facilitate economic development across sub-Saharan region of Africa. So it's going to be quite interesting. We have a number of big players who have been lined up. This is a maiden one, as Kwame may have mentioned earlier on. So we're going to build from here into some significant programs. So thank you to those who have joined and have been able to hold on to this stage. Next month, again, remember, mark your diary, the 7th of September, we're going to have the head of service. We have the chairman of NASG. We have one or two other players in the public and private sector market. But I think what matters is what goes beyond this discussion. So we do not just raise the issue. It's quite new, the free trade zone. We know how we've implemented it in other parts of the world. So we need to begin to push more of the operational boundaries to make this happen for us. Once again, I won't take too much of your time. It's a pleasure having you on board with us, and we hope to see you next time around. In the meantime, please feel free to contact us via emails or telephones. Our phone numbers are online on any issues around innovation, change, and entrepreneurship, and indeed the broader issues around economic development. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Such an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
There are comments from attendees, by the way, to all the participants. Somebody's made a good comment about what Prof's been saying. I think panelists can read the comments themselves. So I would ask Okoyemi to send the transcript of some of these comments to all the panelists. Ambassador, I loved your passion and I loved your energy. And I think if we can push a lot more of that into the system, we'll see change quicker. So I think that's exciting. So thank you. Okoyemi, please make sure everybody gets copies of all the panelists get copies of the participants and of the transcript of the questions that have been asked. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. 35 years in the Nigerian Foreign Service, plus 4 years as a 66-year-old man, across the world from New York to Tel Aviv, all the way down under to Australia and New Zealand.
I can assure you, I know the feeling. I may not look the feeling, but I know the feeling. That's fantastic.
Thank you very much, sir. It's really nice to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Ambassador, such an honor as well. And Dr. Olu, such a pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, and your team did a fantastic job. Great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. God bless you all. Bye now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.